It's that time again when we look back on the political year that was, and it was a big one, 2019, busy. From tensions with China to the SNC-Lavalin controversy, which seems a long time ago, and of course the federal election. So time to bring in At Issue for our annual holiday tradition. All here with me in Toronto, Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, and Althea Raj. All right, let's start with the election. Here's a look at some of the moments from the campaign.
We've all got a choice to make.
Who can you trust to help you and your family to get ahead?
Who can you count on to fight for you?
Qui va être fidèle à ce que nous sommes?
Let's have a real discussion about all the issues that are important.
This is the most important election in Canadian history.
I dressed up in an Aladdin costume and put makeup on. I'm pissed off at myself for having done it.
You might feel like giving up on Canada. You have value, you have worth, and you are loved.
Wearing brown face is an act of open mockery and racism.
The climate crisis is real, and people are waking up.
Trudeau has said a lot of pretty words, but really gave empty promises.
But you won't march in a pride parade. What's the big deal?
Well, there's just lots of different ways to show support to a community.
Canada, your next government will be a Liberal government.
And to Canadians in Alberta and Saskatchewan, know that you are an essential part of our great country.
And while tonight's result isn't what we wanted, I am also incredibly proud.
Okay, it's sort of insane to look at that. That was just the election. I left out like the whole other part of the year, or Ariel did, I should point out. Okay, we're gonna trip through things pretty quickly, so let's get going. Most surprising moment of the election. That's no surprise here. You all had the same answer. Chantal, you start.
Well, the brown-faced pictures, you always expect the unexpected when you cover politics, but there's always something you didn't imagine would happen.
I know.
And those pictures, you kind of sat back and thought, wow, if they'd come out earlier in Justin Trudeau's career, we would probably not be talking about him as Prime Minister.
Yikes, yeah.
Whether we should have been surprised is another question, only in the sense that how this did not come out before,
Sure.
how we in the media missed it, how the opposition researchers missed it, how this never came out before is remarkable in itself.
Althea?
Yeah, I mean, it was very damaging. I think for the first time, even Conservatives who thought that Andrew Scheer had no chance at all of winning thought, oh, this election is winnable. And it's quite remarkable. I mean, even for reporters who were hearing whispers about this photo potentially existing, nothing really prepares you for like actually seeing it.
And multiple photos.
Yeah, and I think it, frankly, it
yeah.
hurt his brand internationally as well.
Yeah. Okay, so that, not surprising question, not a surprising answer. Hopefully it'll get more challenging now. Who gained the most from the election? Not necessarily in terms of seats, that would be too obvious, but in terms of influence or momentum. Again, you all had the same answer. Andrew, you do this one.
Fortunately, it is obvious.
Again.
I mean, the Bloc Québécois was, along with the NDP, people were thinking we're going to have a very bad election result before the event. But I think they found a leader who had built up some momentum with Quebecers, and he had a good campaign. And then, lo and behold, there they were in election night in third place.
He had a great campaign.
Yeah.
And, 18 months before, they were on their deathbed. They were split as a party. They just booted out a very unpopular leader. And even people who thought they were going to do possibly better than the Conservatives did not expect that, the number one voice coming out of Quebec, aside from the Liberals, would be the Bloc Québécois.
It helped that the Parti québécois is so far from where it used to be, so that to vote for the Bloc was kind of a risk-free vote. It also helped that the other campaigns, the NDP and the Conservative, were not compelling campaigns in Quebec. So if you didn't want to vote for Justin Trudeau for whatever reason, and there are many, this was a great outlet, and it was virtually risk-free.
And the NDP was obviously not an option for a lot of Quebecers this time.
It stopped being an option when Thomas Mulcair was fired. I've argued over the years that had someone else than Jagmeet Singh become the leader, I'm not sure they would have that many more MPs in Quebec, because people kind of lost interest when they lost interest in having a leader who was ready to be Prime Minister.
Okay. Worst political move of the election. Althea, you go first on this one.
The Scheer camp not having a clear position on abortion and gay rights, but specifically abortion. This is not something that came out of the blue. They should have had an answer for this. It was bound to happen. I mean, the Liberals have been attacking every single Conservative leader on this issue, and they've never had a leader who's as social conservative as Andrew Scheer. And the fact that this exploded even before the campaign, and they still did not have an answer till after the TVA debate, to me was completely surprising. I mean, it made them, they were speaking on both sides of their mouths. And that's entirely because Andrew Scheer did not tell caucus what his position actually was, which gave people in Quebec the ability to say what they wanted to candidates, which gave people like Lisa Raitt the ability to say something completely different on CBC programs. And that created a lot of confusion, and that is an error by Scheer in his office. And to me, that is the worst political move.
And lots of Conservatives agree with you, I think. Andrew?
I broaden it out more generally to the Conservative platform. Not just the failure to come up with a credible plan on climate change, for good or ill, but also more generally, it was a bunch of small ball, a bunch of warmed over Harperisms, boutique tax credits, tax credit for children's fitness, this kind of thing. Not going to attract new voters over towards them in any particular numbers, not going to inspire the base at all, really. I think they were hoping that Trudeau would just, quote unquote, defeat himself, and he did to some extent, but not enough.
I mean, he probably tried as hard as he could and still managed to win. So I think deciding to read the results of the Ontario election when Doug Ford won in a way that was convenient. So Doug Ford wins, ergo the carbon tax is going to be the horse to slaughter in the election. That was self-serving, but it wasn't true. And the Conservatives decided as of that moment that they were going to go all out on the carbon tax, and it was going to bring them Ontario. And of course it didn't, because a lot of the Ford vote was get rid of the Liberals at Queen's Park. The Conservatives had a leader who wanted to put in a carbon tax, Patrick Brown, 3 months before the election, and he was leading in the polls. But they didn't want to see what they didn't want to see.
Okay, I'm going to see how many more I can get through. I'm not sure. They talk a lot, these guys. Best winner of the election, Andrew.
Chrystia Freeland.
Ah.
I think when it was first talked about her being Deputy Prime Minister, what does that really mean? We found out in the mandate letters it means a whole lot. Partly that's in tribute to the fact that she's probably one of the few ministers in that government that actually had any profile. But I think it was also in defeat. Part of the realization was that Justin Trudeau had become a bit of a liability for the party, need to be less visible, and that she could be somebody who's a more credible and appealing spokesman for the party on a lot of issues.
Chantal.
Don't disagree with that, but the big winner is the person who gets to be the Prime Minister. And so for me, that would be Justin Trudeau, who salvaged victory from the jaws of defeat. He gets a chance to either remake himself or to go away quietly with a successor in the wings. But one way or another, he won't be an accident. He was re-elected.
Nothing?
Yeah, despite it all, Justin Trudeau remains Prime Minister.
And that's enough.
That's enough.
Biggest loser of the election?
Maxime Bernier.
Yeah.
Imagine if he'd remained a productive Conservative critic and had not gone to the fringes wherever he went. Yeah. He would be someone who would qualify as a leading contender to become the Conservative leader today. At this point, there's no remorse over not having had him as leader. No. He damaged himself. His party didn't go anywhere, and he doesn't have a seat anymore. I find that accumulation enough to qualify for biggest loser.
Althea.
I said Andrew Scheer, but I like her answer better.
Take it.
I mean, he did stink himself, but that happened even before the election. I think it was just...
but he lost a seat. I
know, but I'm not sure he would have been able to revive his party as like one single independent MP anyways. But Andrew Scheer, I mean, I don't know that many people thought there really was a potential. I mean, we didn't know about brownface and blackface, and we didn't know what was going to happen. But I don't think that many people thought Andrew Scheer had a real shot of winning this time around. But then when he looked that he did, and the team around him kind of let that opportunity fly by. To me, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not that the Conservatives were not able to make gains, they did, but it's that Andrew Scheer, in the end, I mean, and he saw the writing on the wall by quitting, He is my biggest loser. This seems so mean to say that.
It's not mean, it's just based in fact. Go ahead, Andrew.
I think, relative to the opportunity that was in front of him, I think you have to say Scheer is the biggest loser. His defenders, and they're few, will say, well, he increased their seat count, he reduced the Liberals to a minority, but I don't think anybody thinks that was because of him, right? It was in spite of him. He didn't run a good campaign. He was not a persuasive campaigner. They had a bad platform. I think he deserved his fate.
Okay, best political play of 2019. We gotta go fast, though. Yours is sort of interesting.
Yeah, it's not the best political play in the sense of advancing your own cause, but in the sense of doing what's right is the willingness of Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott to take a stand on principle and to pay the price for it. We don't see enough of that in Canadian politics.
I think we could say best political play is Jody Wilson-Raybould, but we still don't really know what her motivation was. So I don't know if that's best political play.
Now you're just judging other people's, though.
No, but mine was really, Chantal, I said the Liberals' strategy in the election campaign.
Okay, quickly, the worst political play of 2019. Quickly.
The entire Conservative campaign. They was tone deaf and off base, and they campaigned in 2019 as if it were still 2008 and without Stephen Harper. So
and had bad numbers, like had bad information, I would say, too.
Or they didn't care to have facts. That last week was a week of lies, outright lies in the face of reality. Not great.
Yours is all the way back in the spring.
The Liberal response from the Prime Minister on down to the SNC-Lavalin affair, a mixture of lies and stonewalling. They just dragged it out, made it worse for themselves. I mean, I don't think the underlying story was going to do them any favors, but it's always better in these things to get it over with rather than trying to just bluff your way through.
Last one.
My answer was also Chantal's answer in the Conservative handling. But I think, having thought about it earlier today, that Andrew is right. The Liberals' handling of the Jody... It's like I forgot about Jody Wilson-Raybould and the SNC-Lavalin affair, and then it was in the news. And it was like, oh, wait, that did happen in this calendar year.
Yes.
They mucked that up so badly and dragged that out, and their polling numbers started tanking for like the first time.
Yeah, that's all we did for like 6 months.
Exactly.
That's all we did, yeah.
I know, I forgot, clearly.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll let Althea refresh her memory. Adish will be back for another round, but this time we're going to look ahead to 2020 and the political stories to watch, including this one.
As our party begins to embark on this exciting opportunity, electing a new leader, my only ask to my fellow Conservatives is this: let's stay united.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Welcome back to At Issue Round 2. Don't tell anyone, we got 2 blocks. We've been looking back on some of the biggest political moments of the year. We want to take a little bit of time to look ahead and make a couple predictions for 2020. Don't really call them predictions. Chantal, Andrew, and Althea all back now, because I'm not going to like hold you to it or anything like that.
Yes, you will.
No, I might. Yeah. Most promising MP for 2020. So this could be a new person who you think holds lots of promise, or someone who's there and is going to do a really good job in 2020. I'm going to start with you.
So I wrestled with this one, but then promising an MP made me think it had to be like an up-and-comer.
It could be whatever you want it to be.
I'm going to settle on Pierre Poilievre.
Oh.
Who's likely going to put his name in the hat for CPC leadership. So Pierre Poilievre is known to probably the rest of the country as this pit bull. Does not, I would say, if you were like rating his Q rating, probably doesn't have a very high Q rating, known for the so-called Unfair Elections Act. Locally, though, he's a guy who's known to get things done. He works well with others. It will be very interesting to see if Pierre Poilievre, getting married, having a baby, maybe has mellowed him out a little, can bring more of a new face to Pierre Poilievre in this leadership race than we've seen.
You are going to get some nice tweets from Pierre Poilievre.
That Christmas card is on the way.
I already get a birthday card every year.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I have no clue, but if I'm judging by the files that she's been handed, I'm going to say Anita Anand, rookie MP, professor of law and private life, now the new Minister of Procurement and Public Services. Among other things, she's going to have to fix the Phoenix pay system, come up with a new defense procurement process with all the mess that's been over the years. Oh, and by the way, maybe deal with Canada Post as well, which is unfixable. She's got a lot on her plate. They obviously must think very highly of her.
Yes, I don't even think I've met her yet, but good CV.
I picked Chrystia Freeland, but we talked about her, so I'm going to to
Switch
talk
it up.
about my MP, Stephen Guilbeault, the environmentalist who has been thrown out of his comfort zone by being appointed the Minister of Heritage. There is a reason why he won a seat that hadn't been Liberal in almost 30 years and why his name is well respected in Quebec, and that is because he's managed to be an environmentalist and still talk solutions rather than point fingers. In Heritage, it's a challenging file, and it's not his file, so I'm going to be curious, A, to see how he does, but B, to see how he feels within that Liberal team and with the balance that Justin Trudeau says he's trying to find between pipelines and energy and climate change, because Stephen Guilbeault was against the Trans Mountain expansion.
Interesting voice around the cabinet table,
Yes.
at very, very least. Okay, the political story to watch in 2020. We already talked about this before you guys all saw us, but anyway, we'll see if it's the same answer now. Althea.
Conservative Party leadership race.
That's not pro-conservative. That's pro any race.
We love it.
We love leadership races.
Yes,
They're
yes.
like our Olympics.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to see who they select as leader, what the conversation is around where the party wants to go, and then how, if that helps determine how long this Liberal minority government lasts.
The opportunity is there for the Conservatives to have a really far-reaching conversation about who they are as a party, where they stand. They've clearly come to a bit of an impasse with the old approach, racking up 80% majorities in Alberta while failing to win closely contested seats in Ontario and Quebec. My fear and frankly expectation is that they'll punt. And they'll do as parties typically do in these things, is they just go for the popular person.
The easy solution.
The easy solution that avoids those kinds of messy discussions, but we'll see.
It's not all leadership races that we find fascinating. Let's agree on that.
Yes,
But
yes,
this one
yes.
is important
Yes.
because at this point, the alternative to the Liberals is the Conservative Party. The others are very far back or not in the race. In the case of the Greens and the Bloc Québécois, they're really too far back. It is possible to have a popular leader who also takes the party somewhere else. I hope that they have some candidates on offer who do offer that and present a challenge. I know that the Liberals are a bit spooked by this change in the leadership and the way it's happening. And that stands to make the Liberals more on their game, so it's all good.
Okay, so lots to watch. You'll all be here for us to help us through it. Thanks, everyone. Let's do it again. We'll do it again next year. Before we go, be sure to subscribe to At Issue the podcast. You can look for it on iTunes, any major podcast app, our website, cbcnews.ca/thenational.